Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to do a basic VFR flight. I'm not exactly sure if this is going to work today because we have pretty low clouds, but we will discover that one way or another. We are in the X-Cub. This flight and this series of flights is really all about taking me out of my comfort zone, and maybe I can drag you along with me. As I said, we're in the X-Cub. I am trying to identify which pilot's operating handbook is the correct one to use. I'm wondering, is this sport or light sport X-Cub? I'm not really sure. There are various manuals on their website, but I am not sure if I'm looking at the right one. I think I've got three. One of them is going to be the correct one. So we're going to, if I can get into it, I'm going to use the checklist. The checklists are a little bit incomplete. There's an awful lot of sections that are just not there. Parking brake's a little bit awkward. We're in an awkward position. That sets it, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh no, that's released it. So yeah, it's in an awkward position. Fullest tank. Well, we'll leave it on the left one. Battery switch on. Mixture full rich. Let's use the control to do that. Ignition switches on. Alternator field on. Prop lever, full forward, throttle open a quarter inch, but that'll do. And starter engage. Adjust to 1000 RPM. Where is the... Yeah, I need to... That's fine. But where's the indicator for the RPM? Actually, no, I'm not going to set it to 1000 RPM. That's too high. That's a bad idea. Oil pressure is in the green. After starting engine. Lights. Nav and strobe on. Master switch on, and I'll leave the parking brake on for now. So let's get our head back up again. So yeah, we are starting at Bowers Field and we are going to take a flight to Pangborn Memorial. This is in Washington State. Of course, this is a tail dragger aircraft. So again, out of my comfort zone. I find when I'm on the runway, it tends to kind of pull hard to the left sometimes, just out of the blue, but that's probably my lack of experience. In fact, let's just, transponder is set to VFR, standby. Okay, let's... But before we do this, before we actually get on to talking to ATC, there are a couple of subjects I need to talk about as the bus takes off in front of us. The first is VMC, Visual Meteorological Conditions, of VMC. We need to meet VMC minima in order to make this flight, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it, but let's see. We are going to be flying through two classes of airspace, Class Golf and Class Echo. Now, I'm not going to explain those for the moment, but just bear with me. Now, for Class Golf, the minima is 1 statute mile visibility, and we have to be clear of clouds. Now, with Class Echo, it's a little bit more strict. and we need 3 static miles of visibility. 2,000 feet horizontally from clouds, 1,000 feet above, and 500 feet below. So when we listen to ATIS, we need to bear that in mind. We need 3 miles of visibility, and we need to be 1,000 feet above or 500 feet below the clouds. Cruise altitude for this flight is 4,100 feet. We may have to adjust that depending on how this works out. So let's get the automated weather.
Kilo Echo Lima November automated weather observation 1800 Zulu. Wind 276 at 7. Visibility tree. Sky condition few clouds at 1,100 feet, few clouds at 4,200 feet, few clouds at 12,300 feet. Temperature 20 C dew point 10 C altimeter 2999er. Kilo Echo Lima November automated weather observation.
So yeah, we need to be about 3,600. So we need to stay at 3,600 to make it. We can just about pull this off. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take option 2, we're going to announce taxi. I'll just get this out of the way.
Kilo Echo Lima November traffic CubCrafters November 88 Sierra November is taxiing to runway 29er.
I'm just going to stop there, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do here. It's not exactly the whole short point, but it will do. Okay, we are going to take off, fly runway heading up to traffic pattern altitude, and then we will resume our own navigation, as it were. Now, I mentioned Class Golf and Class Echo airspace before. Now, I want to preface this by saying I'm still figuring this stuff out, I'm still learning about this, so I may have got 1 or 2 things wrong. If you are an expert in VFR and sectional charts, feel free to comment and correct me if I do have anything wrong. But I'm going to explain what I believe we're looking at with sectional charts. I wish it wouldn't keep snapping from your paused view, but anyway, that's another story. I talked about Class G and Class Echo, or Class Golf and Class Echo. If you look at the sectional chart, you will see a magenta border around Bowers Field. If you look closely, you will see the magenta boundary has a more solid side to it, and then there's a faded side. So those lines that form the border, or that line that forms the border, is divided into 2. The outer half is a more solid magenta, the inner part is a more faded magenta. The faded magenta indicates the inside of the boundary. Now that indicates Class Echo airspace, which belongs to Bowers Field. To enter that airspace, you need to get permission from Bowers Field Tower. Now that Class Echo airspace starts at 700 feet. Now below that is Class Golf airspace. So we're flying on runway heading, we're climbing through 700 AGL up to 1,000 feet AGL. So we're transitioning from the transition area, which is the Class Golf airspace, up to Class Echo. When we leave that magenta border area, we will still be in Class Echo airspace, but it's a different kind of Class Echo airspace, because that starts at 1,200 feet AGL rather than 700. Again, below that is Class Golf. The thing you have to bear in mind about Class Echo airspace is that it is controlled airspace. So if you're flying IFR, you have to be talking to ATC. When you're flying VFR, you don't need to talk to ATC, but you can request flight following, at which point they will give you a squawk code and they will track you on their radar, but you don't have to do that. Then if we look at Pangborn Memorial, you'll see the same magenta border and the same rules apply. You also see a dashed magenta line or a dashed magenta border. That indicates another kind of class Echo airspace. That is surface airspace, and that goes all the way down to ground level. So we are dealing with class Golf and also 3 types of class Echo airspace, or 3 subsections of class Echo airspace. Now the point to bear in mind here is that before we enter Pangborn Memorial's class Echo airspace, we need to get permission from them first, at least a mile out, not out of the airport but outside that bordered area. So hopefully all that is clear. It can be a little bit complicated. If you look at there's various other symbology there. If you look at Pangborn Memorial, to the top left you'll see a G in a diamond with what looks like an aircraft below it. That is telling you that there are glider operations in that area. There are various other symbols. I won't go into them all because that would be beyond the scope of what I'm trying to do here. We are simply going to fly a basic VFR, and hopefully we're going to get down to land at Pangborn Memorial. So all that done, I think I set the parking brake. No, I don't think I did. So let's get rolling. Let's get established on center line or something like it. See, we're very much limited with visibility here, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge to maintain center line. It's just, yeah, the camera just does that. Okay, this is a little bit different to what we're used to. I don't think I can set heading. What? I'm not even sure how to set the heading bar. Oh, there it is. Apparently you can't just click the knob or press the knob to set it to current heading. It doesn't like me scrolling it for some reason. So in a roundabout way, it doesn't want to go any further for some reason. I think we've got everything covered. Let's get rid of that because that's not really going to help us. So also bear in mind here that I'm going to be talking MSL and AGL. We're at 1755 MSL. AGL is basically, think of AGL as radar altimeter. So if we're talking about 1000 feet AGL, we're looking at 2755 feet. Okay, so that's the altitude we're looking for, at which point we will be in class Echo airspace. And I think I have everything covered. So all that said, I know we've gone on quite a bit, but you know, there's a fair bit of information we need to pull together, so let's get going. I don't know the V speeds, so some of this is going to be, or seem a little bit hit and miss. See, that veering really kind of gets me. Hey, it kind of wants to veer off sharply. It's a real handful to keep straight. It's a real handful to keep straight. It wants to veer left really sharply. As I said, I don't know the V-speeds because I'm still trying to track down the right data in the POH, or the right POH to begin with. So looking for 2,700. No flaps, because I'm having issues with flaps. If I put them down, I then can't get them back up again. I'm not sure what's going on with that. So I'm not doing everything by the book here. Hopefully by the next flight I will have figured that out. ATC open, ATC closed. Now in Class Echo airspace. Heading 299 to 800. I'm going to turn. I'm looking for. Let's get a 3600. I'm going to go in. Than that. Looking for about 86 degree course. We're looking for the I-90, the Interstate 90. An Aerodrome Beacon. This is a good time to explain the Aerodrome Beacon. That is what's going to guide us into Pangborn. It flashes alternately white and green to indicate that it is a lighted airport. Now you may be thinking, how on earth are we going to find the airfield without a flight plan, without ILS? Well, you're going to find it by looking for the Aerodrome Beacon. That's how you're going to find it, see? White, green. Still going a bit too far. I'm keen to get onto the interstate. Don't have a visual yet. Okay, now's probably the time to talk about the route. We're going to fly along. There's the approach lights there. Yeah, you can see the approach lights leading to the runway. Again, that's going to be another way that we're going to find our way to the runway. Let's get up to 3,600. So we get onto the interstate, the I-90, and we follow that to the Columbia River. Specifically, we're looking for a bridge over the Columbia River. But as long as we hit the Columbia River, we'll be alright, and it shouldn't be too difficult to find. So it's down there somewhere. Keep that climb going. Now, you may be wondering why I'm doing this VFR flights. It's so much easier when you don't do a flight plan, and that's the problem. I think, looking at it, isn't it? No, it's not there, interstate. I think as flight simmers we tend to get, let's bring it around a little bit actually. You don't need to be so severe with that heading. I think as flight simmers we tend to get obsessed with IFR, get obsessed with bring the volume down a bit actually. Otherwise we're going to have issues. I think we get obsessed with flying IFR, we get obsessed with flight plans. yeah, that's 3,600. Just starting to descend a little bit through there. All of this is going to be done hand flying, and none of it. I don't think that's the interstate. I think that's. I'm very much mistaken. Yeah, that's the interstate. That is definitely the interstate. So we've hit it. Now we just need to follow that. So that's the first stage. It's probably the toughest stage actually, finding the interstate. So yeah, as I was saying, I think we tend to obsess about flight plans and procedures, and we kind of lose sight of literally what this can be all about and what maybe should be all about. You know, we just got a bit high there. Trying to talk, navigate and fly the aircraft. A bit too close to those clouds. You'd be a bit further below them. Breaking the rules a little bit, but there you go. So yeah, that's the point. This is all about getting out of my comfort zone and doing things that I wouldn't normally do. So yeah, here I am flying. I'm flying the aircraft. In an area that I'm unfamiliar with, without a flight plan, without ILS or anything like that. And maybe I'm trying to encourage you to do the same. Maybe I'm encouraging you to get out of your comfort zone and do something that you're not totally familiar with. Descending rapidly here. A bad habit of putting downward pressure on the stick, or forward pressure on the stick, which is not a good thing. So yeah, it's about getting out of your comfort zone, and of course we've got a sim here that's just ideal for getting out of your comfort zone and doing VFR flights. People are obsessing about the airliners and they're broken and they don't quite work, and there's this issue and that issue with the autopilot. It's a perfect time to get out and do some VFR work. There's absolutely no reason for me to pick. I'm having a really hard time keeping this on altitude. There's no reason at all for me to pick this area other than I just thought it would be interesting to fly around it. It's back to descending again. Thankfully it's not a huge journey. I planned to do longer trips. This is really just to prove to myself that I could do it. And yeah, you do something like this and you learn a little bit about piloting. You learn about charts. You learn how to read a sectional chart. And you know, I just want to say this, sectional charts are not easy to learn, they're not easy to figure out. Apparently a lot of pilots, real world pilots, even people going for instrument rating, have difficulty with charts, with the sectional charts, because they are incredible. There can be an incredible amount of complexity to them, to the point where a lot of people just aren't completely on top of what knowledge they should have. The differences in Class E or Class Echo airspace, that can take up a lot of your time. I wish I could find a power setting where it just sticks, but it keeps going up and down. So we're flying along Interstate 90, I think it is. And we're looking for the Columbia River. And that's all we're doing, we're just looking for landmarks. Just sticking with this. Still a bit too high again. There's wind farms which seem to have just kind of crept up on us. I mean, that is amazing that that is actually just there in the sim. It's just there stock in the sim. I find that incredible. There are plenty of issues with the sim as it is, but it gets a lot more right, in my opinion, than it gets wrong. We're still obviously waiting for a proper study level aircraft. And I think once we start getting study level aircraft, a lot of the complaints will start to fall away, at least I hope so. People will actually start getting out and really enjoying the sim. I think that's the Columbia River ahead. There's a bridge coming up that isn't really well done, you've got to say that. It's not the best river, or not the best bridge you're ever going to see. I don't know if that's ever going to be fixed. I know we're expecting a patch, I think, this week. So by the time this video comes out, 135, yeah. We're climbing a bit steep there, I don't know why. Bring that climb down a little bit. I'm still in that raised position, I think. No, now I'm in that raised position. There we have it, there's the Columbia River. Is it past the wind farms? So yeah, I am sure of V speeds. I've really been concentrating on learning how to read the charts. So that's been my primary focus. Power setting I think will do for now. But at some point I'm going to get on top of some switches back there. I'm not sure what they do. Now is not the time to find out. So you see, we're down here at quite a low altitude. What is it, 2,000 and something? 2,100 AGL. There's the bridge coming up ahead. Now the bridge will turn left and we'll follow the Columbia River. So we're still in VFR. I don't know whether you call it marginal. As long as we stay under the clouds, we will be fine. I think the most impressive thing about this sim is it's pushing believability down. I think that's, in my opinion, that's the advance in flight simulators. It's pushing believability down in altitude. So we're getting to the point where you're getting really low down. If you look at X-Plane 11, oftentimes when you get near an airport, you're coming in for landing, and that suspension of disbelief just goes away. Unless you're talking about a real custom airport that's had a lot of work done on it, you tend to get awful scenery blending into auto-generated trees, and it doesn't really look believable. Whereas here you really are starting to, I mean, yeah, the suspension of disbelief is breaking down at some point, but we're pushing that down in altitude, and that's really the advance for me. in flight simulators. We're getting closer and closer to the ground with somewhat full fidelity. Let's turn. Start that turn to the left. Is that the bridge? There you go, there's the bridge. See, it's not really what you'd call believable. It's obviously issues with that. What's the altitude? Oh, we're descending again. Should have given it a bit more power at the start of that turn. Considering it's so warm, it's the temperature is 25°C. Doesn't look that pleasant today. Still descending. Let's get back where we should be. You know, this is really just meant to be a kind of a test, just a proving ground. For me personally, to show that I can actually do this, that it is doable. I think previously an issue I've had is coming to a destination airport. It'd be really difficult to spot the airport itself, but I found here that it's so much easier. It's really easy to find the airport. Tossed about a little bit here. Some real turbulence. And we need to get some altitude back in there. Drop quite a bit. So we're coming up to what I find a really fascinating little settlement. I'm not sure I'd call it a town or a village. As I recall, it's called Wadapon. And it's right on the river. You can just see it dead ahead, just slightly to the left. It's right on the river. There are slipways into the river for boating. Don't think there's a Google Maps Street View, but I wish there was. It just looks like a really fascinating little settlement with road names like Sunland. I just wonder what it must be like to live at a place like that, just kind of out of the way. A little further along on the right shore is a resort, and then a little bit further on you have what I think is another settlement called Trinidad. It's the altitude. Coming up to correct altitude, just back off on the power. So there is Wadapon, probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but look at that, right on that little bit of flat land, and it's just surrounded by kind of rocky outcrops. Okay, let's watch that altitude. A little bit further on you have an open air amphitheatre. It's easier actually to spot the camping ground than the amphitheatre itself. I'm not sure if I can. Somewhere on the right. But this is it coming up. I think actually that kind of dark green circle off to our right, coming up, kind of a forward right or what, 2 o'clock position. That's the camping ground. Watch that altitude. See, we're climbing again. Too busy talking. That looks like it's the amphitheatre, just off to our front left, or front right, and then off in the distance there's a circular. Well, one of these is the camping ground. It's this big circular area. No, what am I saying, right there, you can see it now, it's like a wheel with the spokes. That's the camping ground. One of these down here is the actual amphitheatre. Not exactly sure the position, but that big circular area with the spokes coming out of it, that's the camping ground. Gone below. Okay, at this point, ATC open. Let's get our clearance. ATC open. ATC 2. It's not listed yet. It's not listed yet. Okay, waiting for Pangborn to pop up on that list. I want to get permission now. Got to have a dog leg left coming up, and that sets us up for the last turn. Just waiting for that list to update. So right now we're in class Echo airspace. Are we still descending? I thought we were climbing. And I thought we were holding that altitude and just put a bit more power into climb, but clearly we haven't done that. This is the beauty of holding or flying it manually. So we've got this dog leg left coming up. Now when you're planning something like this, I would recommend looking at Google Maps and picking a route, also using SkyVector. Getting that route down that you expect to follow. Descending again. ATC 4, ATC 2.
Tower CubCrafters November 88 Sierra November 17 miles southeast to land.
CubCrafters November 88 Sierra November Tower. Make straight in runway 30. Altimeter 29 decimal 7 wind 28 tree at 6.
ATC 1.
Fly straight in runway 30 CubCrafters 8 Sierra November.
ATC close. I'm climbing too much. See, if you're wondering, I use voice attack. I honestly wouldn't do this without voice attack. There are just times when you need to talk to ATC when it's just not possible to reach for the mouse. So at this point we could have requested flight following, been given a squawk code and basically handed ourselves over to ATC. I didn't want to do that. There's no real point to it. Could have flown on autopilot just using heading mode. Didn't want to do that either. Look at that, isn't it? Just awesome. So we're just coming around this dog leg left, and then we have a long gradual turn to the left, and that will line us up with an approach to runway 30. I could have actually done this flight with the Cessna 172 or even the Cirrus SR-22. Thought that would be, well, I'm much more familiar with the SR-22, but maybe that was a good reason to not do it in that aircraft. A bit more power because we started descending it. It's an interesting aircraft, kind of. In a way, it reminds me of First World War open cockpit area. There's this lever up here. I mean, I know it's not an open cockpit aircraft, but just, I don't know. For some reason, it gives me that feeling. Losing altitude again. Okay, we're coming up to a dam. Around this bend, and there's a factory on the left. The great thing about an aircraft that flies this slow is it does give you time to look around and admire the scenery and try not to lose altitude. As it is, I don't know the frame rates that I'm getting right now, but if you know it flies smoothly, so we don't have an issue with that. I've got to say, I'm really impressed with the frame rates, considering we have 3D volumetric clouds. If you've used X-Plane 11 and X-Enviro, you'll know how that can really eat up your frames. I'm impressed flying over places like Toronto and getting the same frames as I'm getting on a stock, small airfield. I don't really have, it's not 3.6 that to maintain that altitude. Descending a bit rapidly there. The great thing about this is you don't have to build OFO, you don't have to allocate tons of hard drive space to OFO scenery. It's all right there, it's all generated for you. We're descending again. It's a bit of a battle keeping it on altitude, but I think practice will actually help a great deal. Look at that rock formations, that face. I have issues sometimes looking for, yeah, I think that's the dam, or I don't think it's a good representation of the dam, but so you can just see it there to the left of the nose of the aircraft. It's not fantastic, but it's not bad. It's not a complete and utter disaster. So then to the left, see, right away you can see the Aerodrome Beacon. Now I have an issue with this airport because I think from what I see on Google Maps there's only one active runway. I'd have to double check that. So there you can clearly see the dam. But see how easy it is to spot the runway. Two sets of approach lights. We don't want the one that's on the right. There's one on the left. From Google Maps, only one of these runways is actually in operation, so I've got a feeling they've messed that up a bit lower than we should be. See, there's a factory down there just off the nose to the left. I'm going to bring it in. Line up for the runway. I think, I should have double checked this, but I think the airport elevation is about 1,500 feet. So we're fine on that. Not going to descend too quickly.
CubCrafters 8 Sierra November, cleared to land runway 30.
ATC up.
286 at 5.
ATC 1, so it's pretty much a headwind. ATC 1.
Cleared to land runway 30 CubCrafters
ATC
8 Sierra
closed.
November.
Just going to bring it in. Start a descent. Nose up a little bit, let's bleed off a bit more speed. First stage of flaps in, let's get descent a bit more rapid now. Let's give ourselves a bit more room here for this. Let's keep flying along the river and then turn onto 30. Again, as I said previously, I am totally unfamiliar with tail draggers, completely out of my comfort zone, so don't expect a textbook landing. Just going to do the best I can. What's the airspeed? 86, it's a bit quick. Okay, that's looking pretty solid. Just centre track IR. That's full flaps. I think we're on glide slope. One white, and or is it 2 whites and 2 reds? Airspeed 68, just a bit lower than I'd like here. So a little bit of a 5 knot kind of nose on, right into, well the wind is coming right down our throats basically at 286. So the VASs are looking good, looking on centre line. Let's get that airspeed down a little bit. Let's get back on centre line. I'm going to have to try to flare a little bit later than I've been doing. If we can keep that controlled. Wow. It really doesn't like to go on a straight line. You can see what I'm saying. It just does not want to stay on a straight line. That is a beast to keep control of. We're looking for a... I'm going to turn off here.
CubCrafters 8 Sierra November, exit runway when able.
ATC open.
CubCrafters 8 Sierra November, contact ground on 123.0.
ATC 1.
123.0 for CubCrafters 8 Sierra November.
ATC1.
Ground CubCrafters November 88 Sierra November request taxi to parking.
We took completely the wrong way.
November 88 Sierra November taxi to general aviation parking using taxiway Alpha cross runway 12 Bravo.
ATC1.
Taxiing to general aviation parking using taxiway Alpha cross runway 12 Bravo CubCrafters 8 Sierra November.
I hope you enjoyed that. That is a VFR flight, a basic VFR flight from Bowers Field to Pangborn Memorial. I hope you learned a little bit about VFR, VMC and sectional maps, and I hope that encourages you to go out and try a little bit of this yourself. So hope you enjoyed that, hope you found it useful, and as always, feel free to like, comment and subscribe.